This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you in part by Telex, the interconnection company, owners and operators of 56 Marietta, the most network-rich co-location facility in the Southeast. Tag TV and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. Well, Tino, it's that time of year again. It's the end of another year, 2009, heading for 2010. Probably the best way to start is maybe give us a kind of a quick review. Gosh, it's been a wild and crazy year. Tell us a little bit about membership growth, some of the activities and things that have occurred over the last 12 months.
We've had a good year. We're pretty excited about where we're positioned right now. TAG's now celebrating its 10th year, moving on to the 11th year, so I would say that we've moved out of the early stage company into second stage. And with that comes opportunities and certainly challenges. And most of the challenges that we face, certainly I face in the leadership position here at TAG, is how do you move to the next level, which to me is more in the area of economic development. How do we really move the needle on technology in Georgia, and building us to, as a state, to be in the top 5 in the nation in respect to technology. But that being said, specific to your question, it has been a good year, and we look at a lot of benchmarks. We have something called a key indicator report that we submit to our board of directors each quarter, and all of the indicators have exceeded their goals, which is always a good thing to have. I hope we can keep it going. As an example, we're just about at 9,000 members, so that's having more members and having more people that get involved with TAG in respect to coming to our meetings is one of the indicators, because people are involved. So just, Frank, you remember the time that you and I were talking about there only being 1,400 members, so we've come a long way.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things I want to clarify for our listeners is the fact that, a healthy organization is a reflection of a healthy industry. So as you continue to expand the outreach and the participation and the networking and the education and so many things that you're talking about, say now with 9,000 members, that's also an indication of a growing and healthy statewide industry as well.
We have about 13,000 technology companies in the state and 180,000 people that are classified in the technology space. So they may be in a tech-enabled company like a Coca-Cola or other companies that are not known as a technology company, certainly have a lot of employees that are in the technology space within that company. So we try to penetrate as much of that market as we can. And even though the economy has been tough this year and technology hasn't taken the hit of some of the areas, I think we're, to your question, we're down maybe 2% in respect to jobs lost in technology, net jobs lost in technology, compared to, the market that everyone knows, about 10% unemployment, and some industries, carpet industry and others, auto industry, got hit extremely hard. So I wouldn't say that our industry was recession-proof, but we certainly did better than some. And TAG is interesting because TAG in this kind of economy, and I'm sure as people think about it, is a touchstone for people and companies that want to stay connected for very reasonable amounts of dollars. So we're actually doing better than we were prior year. And, for example, we have 2,500 more people that have attended our society meetings this year versus last year. So technology industry is holding its own. We had a CEO dinner for technology presidents about a month ago, and we asked for a show of hands of the 35 CEOs that were in the room as to how many were hiring and how many were laying off, and the vast majority were hiring. So that was good to hear.
Well, when you mentioned earlier about economic development, and of course there's government relations, there's a lot of things now that a maturing organization gets to contribute in that an early stage one can't. But let's stay for a minute about the fact that you created an environment, because I think that's an important point. Everybody knows the current economic conditions are a struggle for many situations, and yet there are others that are growing and competing effectively, healthcare, education in some areas. But I think what's really important here is what you mentioned, and that is having a healthy organization, the way TAG is, allows for both companies and individuals to explore new opportunities, new technologies, network in arenas that are much more efficient than if they were doing it single-handedly. So I think let's not pass over that too quickly. I think that's pretty amazing that we've enjoyed 2,500 more attendees to special interest groups. I also know that you're talking about expanding those interest groups. Is that correct?
Yeah, Frank, you know just about as much about TAG as anyone, so you're exactly right. We now have, well, at the end of this year, we have 23 active, engaged societies. We've changed a few out this year. We added a subgroup to the TAG Finance called FinTech, or Financial Technologies, and that's starting to get some legs under it. Global Sourcing has now changed to International Business, and that's starting to gear up as well. Those are part of the 23. Now we have at least 4, actually 5 on the drawing board that should start over the course of next year. One is manufacturing with a technology emphasis. There's still a strong manufacturing industry within the state, and certainly the use of technology in those companies is critical to their success and producing that return on investment. So we're happy to be starting that one. Also, there's a corporate M&A, we call it corporate development, that is going to be focusing on mergers and acquisitions from a standpoint of like maybe, for example, a large company that has that operation within their company. It could be a UPS or a Coca-Cola. But also it'll be companies that are interested in understanding more about M&A activity. They might be looking to buy or to sell. So we think it'll be a real robust society, and we're excited about that. And then finally, the last few include Logistics Society, and you know, Frank, that we're very strong in logistics supply chain. And we're looking at a couple others, one on infrastructure, hardware. We don't have a hardware society. And finally, recently we've been approached to start an engineers society, which would be under our people category. So it would be a society for engineers that are in this area that want to discuss activities that they're involved with as a profession.
Now, I know that, again, some of these early stage groups are really expanding. The proper one for global sourcing now is called?
It's International Business. And
I was speaking to some of their members, and they're talking, that thing has already gotten off the ground and getting a lot of traction. I think that's going to be a huge success. The manufacturing one's got to be a great idea. These are absolutely dynamite opportunities for people to learn, educate, expand their own career paths, also get awareness about technologies and where things are going as far as each one of these segments are concerned. So, again, I think obviously for any of our listeners and members, certainly you know that all you have to do is just go to the TAG Online website and look under societies, and you're going to be able to identify, again, as Tino mentioned, 23 now going into, sounds like 25, 27 different vertical interest groups that are going to connect you with leaders in those sectors. Let's talk a little bit about another huge success. I think something that's just really gotten off the ground, but as I understand, it's getting a lot of momentum and a lot of attention, and that's the Education Collaborative.
Yeah, we're excited about that. You know, the TAG Foundation was formed almost immediately after the formation of TAG, and it was during those boom periods. We picked up a lot of members quickly, and it's fairly traditional in organizations like ours that are successful. Charities form because we're a 501c6 organization, which is a trade association, if you will, and then the 501c3s are the charitable organizations like the one I used to be in, the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club or some of the hospitals, etc. And so we started that, and we had, at one point, TAG had a part-time executive in that post. We started to get some traction. We were instrumental, actually, in helping to start Tech High School, and we've interviewed folks from Tech High School before. But as TAG began to decline a bit after the boom and during the bust, there was less attention paid to the TAG Foundation, and I bided my time to really strengthen TAG first so that we would be in a position to have consistent support to the TAG Foundation. And that happened over a year ago when we were able to hire our first executive director in John Hurlbut. And John is working hard to build and grow that organization. We now call it the TAG Education Collaborative, as you mentioned. And they have a number of initiatives, including a web challenge where students in high school can participate in that. Actually, we give away some college scholarships, partial college scholarships for those that we recognize in that area. And then we started a summer internship program for rising seniors in high school that, with the idea that we could connect them to the technology community and create some stickiness there in hopes that these kids that already have an aptitude in technology would go on to college and pick a career in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's going well. The first year we had 33 students that we gave scholarships to. We paid $500, and the company paid $500, and they had 5 weeks of employment, and they made some money, and the companies were just amazed at the level of skill that these students came into the company with. A lot of them have been kept on, and it's just something that these companies want us to come back and do it again, so we're looking to expand that program going forward.
And again, we're only talking about a single year, but so much has happened, so much expansion, new growth, the maturing out of a lot of initiatives that were started early on in your administration and your time at leadership at TAG. But you mentioned STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and that's a big initiative. That's, I guess you would say, is the overall umbrella purpose as far as the focus of the Education Collaborative. Is that correct? I mean, I know that John and his group I thought they took a brilliant position. They're not about creating new ideas in terms of new initiatives, but rather how to integrate the technology community and the membership of TAG with a lot of the initiatives that are already going on around the state.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a couple things there. One is that this idea of leveraging our 9,000 members to support what's needed particularly in the K through 12, and that has actually been demonstrated through, for example, the summer internship program, where we're connecting schools, students, and technology companies for the long-term goal of getting having more students go on to college and getting their degrees in one of the STEM categories. So, and another area that you mentioned is this whole government relations area. So we're also behind the scenes with our lobbyist, Kaylin Sewell, supporting any kind of a legislative change that will influence the interests of students and their parents to, again, look at STEM as a career.
You mentioned Kaylin now. I think most people may or may not even be aware that she's actually a full-time staff member. Is that correct?
Yeah, she is, and that's a good point. She's a lobbyist. She does more than that, but she's active in that area. She's doing a great job for us, and we're doing some things that a lot of our listeners won't know that we're doing. But one thing, for example, is we've had almost all of the gubernatorial candidates for the 2010 governor's race come to our board meeting one at a time, or our CEO dinners one at a time, and present their case with a lot of emphasis on technology. And the beauty of this is we get to meet with them and educate them on technology before they come into the arena, if you will. And that's been a good thing. And many of these candidates have learned a lot from what we've been able to relay to them, and it's ended up as part of their platform, and that's what we were shooting for. We want whoever the next governor is to position technology and the need for technology in terms of the future of our state front and center. So we think we're accomplishing that. TAG is now positioned as a voice for technology, and that's just one of the many things we're doing in that area.
Well, if any, and I doubt seriously that there's any member, either corporate or individual, that wonders what their money goes for. But I think there's so many things that, it's the old joke about touching the elephant. You kind of know directly what you think it's going for, but you hear about so many other things. I think it's important for those people who are members, those people who, we've even got special packages now, special commitments, the Premier package, the Premier member. I want you to maybe comment a little bit about that in a second. But I really think it's important. It's almost, I was watching a fundraiser on public television the other day, and they were talking about, it's a partnership. You give us your money, and it allows us to go out and put on the programs that you'd like to see. And I thought, boy, that's kind of what TAG does, isn't it? I mean, in a way, a lot of times, you get such a value package for your membership, but you don't realize all of the other things that are happening, like this lobbying situation, where how would the technology community really have a focus that allows for almost an entire industry to have representation as far as state government is concerned?
No, that's a good point, and we try the best we can at TAG to let people know what's happening, but it's always good to have TAG Radio with globalspeak and you, Frank, to help with that. And people are interested in certain aspects of TAG. They may come into TAG because they want to be part of the Business Process Management Society or the Entertainment Society, or they want to write white papers. They probably don't come into it for the most part unless it's some of our companies saying that they want us to be the voice of technology and be out there front and center for legislative agendas. But in fact, as we grow as an organization, more people know that we're in their corner for that sort of thing, and that's helping. So, next year if we go in there and try to get a new bill approved,
sure,
it's going to benefit the community. We're going to need to actually build some good grassroots in respect to getting our people involved. And in fact, we just bought a new system where next year anyone of our members or even non-members can come to our site if they want to know who their local legislators are, and they can click on the information. If we have an issue, we can help them write a letter to their representative or make a phone call to start building that grassroots. Because when we compare ourselves to some of the other industries, the school union comes to mind. We really don't have the kind of engagement as a unified front that some of the other areas do, and that, in effect, hurts us to some degree because we don't have that. So TAG's out to change that. It's going to take a long time, but we do.
Again, it's what you said earlier. I think there's so many things that people really don't know that you're up to, and so many things that you are building that have to start at some point, whether it's the Education Collaborative and impacting workforce development and the science, technology, educational areas, engineering and math that we talked about with STEM. Now we're talking, you and I were talking about it the other day. I was at a regional state chamber meeting, and there was a lobbyist there talking about the current activities in the legislature, and all they kept saying was TAG is doing this and TAG was doing that, and it was kind of made you feel proud, to know that you were there representing TAG, but TAG was representing an entire industry and an entire state. So those are just areas that I think a lot of people, a lot of members really don't realize where their investment is going. Let's talk a little bit about, and we're kind of running short on time and there's so much to talk about, but I do think you want to talk a little bit about staff expansion. I know you've had a recent announcement with a new top executive that you're going to be working with, but also you might want to comment on how the overall internal organization is creating, I think, a powerhouse. I would call it kind of customer relationship management team in terms of making sure people are getting all of the services and opportunities that the organization represents.
Right. Well, we hired, most people know Melanie Brandt, who used to work for us a few years ago and then went to take on a good responsibility at the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce. And then when we had the position open for Chief Operating Officer, she was one of my top candidates going in because of what she's done in a short period of time in respect to having an impact in the Gwinnett area, and even what she did when she was with TAG. So we're excited. She just started, I think she's into her second week now, but she's going to do a terrific job, and she'll do more of the operational side. She'll have some people to supervise here, and then she also will definitely take on some major projects for us as we look to expand and grow. We have a terrific team. I'm really proud of the group. They're hardworking. They're not 9-to-5 folks, as you know, Frank. They're early in the morning. They have meetings at night. We're in on the weekends. We really do whatever it takes to get the job done. It's kind of my style, and I look for people that will kind of follow in my footsteps in that regard. But I wish we had time to talk about all of them. They're on our tagonline.org website. You did mention membership and relationship management, and that's key. So once we do sign up a company, let's say in our Premier program, which is we now have just hit the 80 mark, which was our stretch goal this year.
I'd say to any of the listeners to check into the Premier membership. The information is on tagonline.org, because this is an extremely great value-added premium that takes your membership to a whole different level, and really almost a concierge service, if you will. Allow me to describe it that way, Tino, in terms of making sure you're getting the maximum out of your TAG membership.
Yeah, it is. It's a great program, and we continue to add the benefit. You and I are partnering to that. We've expanded the benefit now, where if a company wants to get a video about their company, we can put that on our site. They can use it. I think, Frank, we have it as a 3-minute. There's some options, but they can make their pitch. And the premiers, I tell you, they really enjoy the opportunity to connect with other premiers. We have the who's who of companies of all shapes and sizes in that premier membership category, and so the benefits are great. It's a one-stop shop, and for the price, it's probably the best deal in town. So we're hoping to continue to grow that.
And at a time when you need to, things are cutting back and budgets are getting tougher, you need to make sure you're spending your money the most effective and efficient way to create business, to make contacts, and to network with the kind of people that you really need to network in order to make things happen. And I think that premier membership situation couldn't happen at a better time. You started it, I guess over a year ago maybe, but it's really matured out, and as you mentioned, some 80 companies. That's great. We're running out of time, but I think we'd be remiss in not talking about some of the events from over the year, the actual live events that have occurred. Excalibur, another super successful year, 15 finalists that ultimately led to being recognized with Excalibur Awards as winners in 4 or 5 categories, I think, 5 categories if I recall.
Right.
And that's already happened. We had our Georgia Technology Summit for '09, but talk a little bit about 2010. We're heading towards a new year, and the new year it starts off with the largest attended event of, I think, any technology event in the state of Georgia, and that's the Georgia Technology Summit, again, coming up for 2010. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Summit is one of our hallmark events. Last year we had Thomas Friedman, author of Hot, Flat, and Crowded, and The World is Flat, as the keynote speaker, and we drew a record number, over 1,200 people. We had our top 40 companies there, top 40 innovative technology companies. We gave out the Hall of Fame Award to past president of Georgia Tech, Dr. Clough, and I think much fun was had by all. It's really, our events are an important part of TAG, because we say it's the place where people can come together and celebrate and recognize all the great things that are happening in Georgia and the Georgia technology community. So we're looking forward to another great event this year. We have landed our first speaker, Tom Kalopoulos, who we interviewed on the radio last week on TAG Radio. They can still pick that up on the TAG TV site for our listeners. And it's going to be another great event with the top 40, with the Hall of Fame, with keynote speakers. Theme is always around innovation, and certainly innovation in respect to the economy as it goes. This year it's going to be even more critical. So people can sign up for that. We have sponsorships. We've already sold a significant number of sponsorships. If there's no better place to put your brand, to build your brand in the technology community than this summit. So we're hoping that people will do that and participate in that. And we have, again, another good year of events planned. The big events include the Excalibur Awards, the Tag It Golf Tournament, which sells out, and the Techie 10K, which we started last year. And there's some great women in technology events like WIT Connect. Our marketing society does the TAMI Awards. So
Business launch competition, Georgia Research Alliance. That's another great one. I mean, what, $250,000 worth of startup capital and in-kind services. Another great place to get your brand out. I guess, and not to be too commercialized, but I think it's important for our listeners to note that, while you're doing your 2010 budgets now, it is the end of the year. Some have already completed them. Others are still working on them. That TAG offers a whole spectrum of possibilities in terms of opportunities to get your brand out in front of people, the events that we talked about, and many other things that are offered through the organization. I guess one last thing we would probably close on this, and that is talk a little bit about next year in terms of vision and opportunities as it relates to the economy. Are you feeling pretty confident about, I know we have been talking about it, where the organization is going, but maybe kind of, I know you did your technology survey, your state of the state report, and that'll be coming out at the Technology Summit, but you've gotten some of that information in. Maybe kind of give us maybe a quick idea of what that's indicating.
Well, last year was not a strong year, but we still gained a few new companies. We lost some employees, but again, it was less than a lot of the marketplace. Things are now starting to stabilize. We have a report on our site each month that shows how many jobs are open in technology in Georgia, and used to be around 4,000. That dropped to 1,400, and now it's back up to about 2,800 in the last 3 months. That stabilized around that number. Mm-hmm. So I think those are positive things. As for TAG's goal, where we want to impact again is, in addition to being the place where people connect and being the voice for technology in the government relations side, we really want to start driving the economy. And some things we're doing already are Venture Atlanta, which people know about, and the business launch competition. And there's a number of new programs that we're looking at. We've established some new task forces that are focused on some new initiatives for us. One is to have TAG be more of a statewide organization. So how can we have an impact in Valdosta and in Savannah and in Macon and all parts of the state? And we have a plan that's emerging for that. And then we also want to play a role in what we call our Georgia awareness effort. A lot of times I think anybody inside the state or outside the state is thinking about Georgia in terms of a place to grow their business or bring their business. Here's all about water, traffic, and education. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of good things happening. Certainly Georgia Tech is fourth-ranked engineering school in the country as an example. We do have those 13,000 technology companies. So we want to spend some time in partnership with the Chambers of Commerce and with Georgia Department of Economic Development and other partners to drive a better message out there. And when I say out there, meaning inside the state and outside in respect to Georgia. So maybe, Frank, we can do this again sometime soon and carry forward, because there's a lot we didn't talk about, really? But I think by this time our listeners are going to be getting probably ready to do something else.
Well, but I'll tell you one last thing, and that is that it's hard-pressed not to be impressed with the number of things that are going on. And I guess one last point would be, if I'm interested in participating, obviously there's tagonline.org. They can make direct contact. There's information on the site about how they can either become a member or become a corporate member if they're not already. Premier, sponsorship, all of those types of things are all right there. So we'll go ahead and close with that. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to wish everybody maybe a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Absolutely. We have some great members, 9,000 of them now, and even those that are listening that aren't members, they need to join. But happy holiday season, and look forward to a great year for you and Frank, and for our listeners and their companies, and we'll be back next year.
Keep up the good work, and this is my chance to say thank you for joining us on Tech Talk.
Thank you.